This is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I've been working in school administration and teaching for almost 25 years now. I'm also a homeschooling father with 10 children, and I've currently got 4 children in college. What I'd like to do in this talk is help homeschooling parents understand how to manage their children's education. One of the biggest challenges I see for homeschooling parents is that they often have no experience in school administration or even school teaching, and many of their thoughts about how college and career preparation works or how earning a high school diploma works were influenced by their own ideas as they went through those things as students, and much of that is actually not true. I would even argue that schools sort of control the way students and parents think about schooling to make it look more serious than it really is and keep them in line with other students, when really it's quite a simple process to manage if you understand how it all works, think about it rightly, and then do things that actually contribute to your success in your studies. So what I'd like to do is take a walk through the way that I personally think about completing high school studies, preparing for college admission, and so on, so that you can get an inside look of how I myself, as I said, with almost 25 years of school administration and private school teaching and homeschool experience, think about and handle these things, because I think you'll find it very simple and freeing. And not only will it be helpful for you as parents, but it will motivate your children and help them to understand what they need to get done so that they can pursue it themselves and see themselves progressing and be satisfied as they do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a sample transcript. I'm going to pull this up on the screen here. This is a sample transcript that I use. I recommend it to families in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and you may look at this and say, this is so simple. This is the transcript that I use for my own children. And as I said, all 4 of my first 4 children are in college, successfully admitted. 2 of them are ROTC cadets with all of their tuition paid for, my oldest 2. And this has been successful for us, again, not only for us as parents, but it's also been successful in helping our kids to understand what they need to do and put it in their control so they can just work on it and get it done. Now, this is a transcript template that you're welcome to use, and I'll put a link in the description so that you can get to this. And some people say, well, transcripts come later, right? We work on the transcript at the end of our children's studies when they're finished and getting ready for college applications. No, that's wrong. The transcript needs to be figured out first, because the transcript is the goal of the children's formal education. It's the goal of their academic work. All of the questions that I get about what courses should we study, when should we study this or that, all of those questions are answered by the transcript, because ultimately it depends on what you want to have on a student's transcript that determines what the student should study and when. The transcript is the final goal for formal studies. So whatever you prepare on the transcript then creates the timeline and the task list for what needs to get done by the student. And the student can see this himself and understand that he's working to produce this transcript in the end. So what I recommend to parents, to homeschooling parents, is that you first sit down, and this is something for, let's say, a husband and wife to do together as they think about homeschooling. they should sit down together and think, what do we want our children's transcript to look like when they're finished with their high school studies? Now, what you see on the screen here is a sample of the way that I think about my own children's transcript and what I want to see on their transcript. We have to remember that the transcript is a document for use in modern contexts. It's something that we're going to send to a college. It's something that we may need to submit to an employer if they request a transcript. For example, my oldest 3 children entered the military after they finished their high school studies to join the reserves and go ROTC. When they joined the military wanted to see their diploma and their transcript. So the transcript is important not only for college admission, but it can also be requested by other institutions or organizations that our kids may be interested in after their high school studies are finished. Now this is a template, so you're welcome to use it, and it's designed to be edited with your own homeschool information. Some people ask, well, is the Classical Liberal Arts Academy a school? Can we get a Classical Liberal Arts Academy diploma or transcript? And there's no need for you to do that. There's no need. Colleges and professional institutions, they understand that homeschooling is a legitimate form of education. Many homeschool parents, because of their own weaknesses and uncertainty, allow those uncertainties and their confusion to sort of be associated with homeschooling. But outside of your own mind, colleges and professional organizations, they've been dealing with homeschool students for decades now, and it's no longer an unusual thing, and you need to stop worrying about it. Your own uncertainty is one thing, but colleges and professional organizations, they don't have any uncertainty with respect to homeschooling. So you just need to get those thoughts out of your head. The main reason why homeschooling parents do struggle with confusion and uncertainty is because they don't know what they're doing. And many of the homeschool programs don't help because the way that they do things doesn't make any sense. If you learn to think about homeschooling the way that I'm going to show you, you can actually have confidence and know that what you're doing is going to work. Because if you have a quality transcript for your child at the end of their high school studies, they've got a sufficient number of credits, a sufficient list of courses, and good grades in those courses, they're going to get admitted to colleges. That's not an if or maybe. That's definitely true. They may not get admitted to Harvard because every student applying to Harvard has a great transcript, and it usually comes down to other factors in admission. It's really not about transcripts or SAT scores at that level because everyone has good SAT scores. Everyone has an impressive transcript. But if you want to prepare a transcript that you can be certain will allow your child to be accepted to a good college, all you've got to do is make sure that the desired courses are studied and present on the transcript and that the student has worked to earn good grades in those studies. So let's take a walk through this transcript, and I'll show you what you need to do in order to prepare this for your own children and prepare it for yourself as a homeschooling parent. When you open this template, the first thing you want to do is make a copy for yourself, and it's very easy. Just go up to File and then make a copy. So you can make a copy to work on in Google Docs if you use Google Docs. If you use Microsoft Word or something else on a desktop computer, you can just go to Download, and then you can see the options you can select from. So you can download this template as a Microsoft Word file, for example. I don't recommend you do that. I recommend you work on it in Google Docs. just because Google Docs is very useful. And also, if you do create these documents using Google Docs and you want help from me, you can just share a link to the document you're working on, and I can, over time, help you to work on that document. We can collaborate online. That's what Google Docs is designed for. So I would recommend just file, make a copy, and then work on it in Google Docs. Up here at the top, you can see that you should enter your homeschool information. Your homeschool should be registered with your state. If it's not, you're probably in trouble. But you need to do whatever is necessary to register your homeschool. So put your homeschool name up there. I mean, it's very simple. Our homeschool is called William C. Michael Academy. Just, nothing important. But it's got to have a registered name, and usually your state takes care of that. And then the address, your home address, and then a contact email address where, if you send this transcript to someone and they've got questions, they can send an email. The admission department or whoever is reviewing the transcript has a contact email to send any questions to. And realize that this should be a respectable email address, not something like, goofballkiller964@aol.com. So think about just the overall appearance of the transcript and your contact information. Find something respectable that looks, professional, because this is going to be submitted in a professional context. And then a contact phone number. All right, so this is your homeschool information that can be entered at the top of this page. And all of the information on here is necessary and important for things like college admission. So don't remove anything and don't necessarily add anything. This is an effective transcript already containing everything that's necessary for the purposes of a transcript. So anyway, customize that information. Secondly, the student information. Enter the student's name, full name here. Enter the student's address. That's important. Make sure you have the student's name and address on the transcript. Even if they're the same, just treat the student as if he's a student in a school. The status. If the student is still working on his studies, he should be listed as enrolled. If he's finished with his studies, you'll change this to graduated or completed. Then the number of credits that the student has, which obviously starts out at 0, and you can see down here where we list the courses, you can see that there are credits assigned to each of these courses. Now, what a credit is in academic language, a credit is equivalent to 120 hours of instructional time in a subject, 120 hours. So anywhere you see 1 credit, that means that the student has put in 120 hours of study or has received 120 hours of instruction or a combination of the two in this subject, 120 hours. Now, you may wonder, how in the world do I manage that? Well, it's very simple. The normal modern school calendar contains 180 days. So let's just say in your homeschool, you keep an ordinary school-like schedule where for each of these subjects, and these are high school studies, each of these subjects, the student spends 40 minutes per day during the school year on these subjects. Well, 40 minutes times 180 days makes 120 hours. That's where this number 120 comes from, and where this idea of the credit comes from. It's simply participating in a high school course for the course of one academic year. So 40 minutes a day times 180 days of the school year would give you 120 hours. So that's what a credit means. So if it's a full course that's going to be studied, it should be assigned 1 credit. If you do something less significant, like let's say a child takes piano lessons, and they take piano lessons through their high school years, but they don't get 40 minutes per day. Let's say the child has a 40-minute lesson once a week, and then he spends 20 minutes a day practicing. You could add piano to the transcript and just assign it half a credit rather than a full credit, and say it's a study that's pursued for about 60 hours per school year rather than 120. Or you can even do 0.25 credits. It really doesn't matter, but you can add things and adjust the credits based upon how much time is devoted to that activity. So that's all going to be totaled up in the end, and you're going to have a total number of credits. So if you look, a normal course of high school studies would consist of these 5 subject areas, and they would each be worth 1 credit. So 5 times 4 years would give you a total of 20 credits. So an ordinary high school transcript would have about 20 credits, okay, just to give you an idea. Now, the next piece of information is the date. That's the date of the transcript. So let's say a child wants to apply to college in January of his senior year. So it will be January 30th, let's just say, and you're preparing this transcript to include in a college application. The date would be the date that the transcript was produced. So it might be incomplete, and that's okay. We're saying that this is the student's transcript as of this date. Okay, so that date should be the date of the transcript. So through the child's years of study, that date would be changing each time you printed out a copy of the transcript. And then ultimately, when status changes to completed or graduated, there's going to be a final date for the final transcript. And that's going to be the one ultimately that sums up and records all of the student's high school studies. But when you submit a college application, normally the student is still studying, so it's an incomplete transcript, and the colleges expect that. So you would just include the date of the transcript, and then anything that the student was working on. Like, let's say the student is a senior and he hasn't finished mathematics yet. You would just, you could leave the credits at 1.0, and you would just, put a space filler in there for in progress. And again, that's normal procedure for the colleges. They know what that means. So you would just leave blank whatever wasn't finished yet, and that's fine. But that date is the date of this transcript when it's actually produced and printed or shared. And then the GPA is calculated when the student is finished with his studies. Of course, again, if you're submitting an application to a college, you would calculate the GPA based on what's actually been finished and add that GPA there. This is the sort of thing that really determines college admission. And let me just digress a little bit to explain how we should think about college admission. If you go to a college website, and give me 1 second and I'll pull up a screen and show you what I mean here. Just 1 second. All right, here on the screen, I went to my own, my alma mater, Rutgers University, and found the information that I want you to take a look at. When we think about our kids' transcripts and we think about their statistics and their numbers and things like that, like GPA, the universities want to publish the most impressive statistics that they can for their incoming freshman students. And so if the numbers that our children have on their test scores or on their transcripts are low, they're not going to get admitted. And the reason why is because they're going to bring those statistics down. And so the admissions department is trying to maintain the highest level of statistics, average statistics, I should say, for their incoming freshmen. So you can see here on the Rutgers University website, undergraduate admissions, they publish this information. So you can see the admissions profile. View the admissions profile of previously admitted students. The admissions department wants this to be as impressive as possible. And so they're going to go through and share the statistics of their recently admitted class of students, and they want these scores to be as high as possible. So if you think about it, when they say the average high school GPA ranges from 3.7 to 4.2, obviously not on a 4.0 scale, but ranges from 3.7 to 4.2. Well, if you apply to Rutgers University and your GPA is 2.3, you're not going to get admitted. The average SAT score ranges from 1320 to 1500. So if you take the SAT and score 1100, you might get denied because your admission, your score is going to bring down the averages. And so they're going to accept students who are in these ranges or above these ranges and try not to accept students whose numbers are below these ranges. So as the students are working through their studies, it's going to give you an idea what sort of school they can apply for and expect to get admitted in. Or, if you think about this the other way around, if you want your child to go to a certain level of school, and I'm just saying this for the sake of discussion, if you say, I really want my child to get admitted to an Ivy League school, or just a great modern university like Stanford University or Notre Dame, the standards are going to be high, and you're going to have to prepare a transcript well in advance that would earn a child admission to that school, and then you're going to have to do the work to make that transcript a reality. So you can get admission statistics and profile information about the students that are admitted to different colleges and universities, and you can look and see what would need to be done to expect admission to that school, or you can look at what realistically you might get done and what schools you should consider applying to. You may have a life where academics are important, but they're not the ultimate thing, and our children don't have the most impressive transcript, the highest SAT scores, perfect grade point averages, and so on. And that's fine, because a child can apply to a lower level college, solid college or university, but not the highest level of studies. Like Rutgers is average, above average, I would say. Definitely not Ivy League, but also definitely above most private colleges and things like that. But you can get a good sense of what schools your children can expect to get admitted to, and that can just take the pressure off things. Now, if you have a child that has high ambition and homeschooling is not preparing them adequately to gain admission to the highest level of school, it's not the end of the world, because the children can get admitted into a school, a good solid college, get their college career started, earn good grades, and then apply to transfer to a better school. So the college that you're admitted to out of high school does not need to be the college you actually graduate from. That's what I did, actually. I was such a goofball in high school that I didn't get admitted to Rutgers on my first attempt. I went to a smaller school in New Jersey, took a year of classes, got A's and B's, did well, and then applied and transferred into Rutgers. So just because you're not prepared at age 18 to go directly into the highest level of college or university doesn't mean you're stuck in a lower level school. You can simply go for 1 year, prove yourself at the college level, and then apply to transfer to a better school. So there's really not a lot of pressure on college admission coming out of high school. In fact, we tend to recommend for our own kids that they take their first classes at a local community college just to sort of transition into independent adult life and learn to handle the stress of adult life little by little. And then after a year or so, pick a school that they'd like to go to and apply and transfer there. And that's worked really well for our family. So it's not a high-stress situation, but you've got to be realistic and understand how these things work. So you can get that information and think about it, and then use that to think through your transcript. So the GPA here, if you're going to apply to a really challenging school, it's going to have to be high, 3.5 or higher. And you're going to have to figure out how you're going to demonstrate that. Now, one of the benefits for academy families studying in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is that all of the students' work is recorded and graded, and the grade books are accessible. So the students can always see their grades, which you can just transfer to the transcript. But even better than that, in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, students can continue retaking quizzes, resubmitting assignments, and raising their grades. So there's really no limit to students in the academy as long as they keep working. Modern schools don't give kids that opportunity. Modern schools may give a kid one chance to take a test. That may affect his grade, and then that's that. I personally think that that's stupid, and even when I was a private school teacher, I refused to grade my students like that. I always told my students that they could take quizzes and tests as many times as they wanted to. They could submit assignments late, and I would regrade them and change their grades in the grade book because they need to study and learn and prove their knowledge. And I'm willing to work with them as much as they need me to so that they can be motivated to study and learn rather than give them an excuse to be lazy, get a low grade, and say, oh, well, I'm just not good at math. I think we need to take that away from schools and make the kids study, giving them the option to constantly raise their scores. That's how real life works. And in the academy, it's one place where the kids can do that. And so there's flexibility for the kids to constantly improve, but there's also some source of external grades and records that you can bring into your transcripts, and you don't have to pull these numbers out of the air. You can verify those numbers, and of course I would verify those numbers if a university reached out to us for verification, as they sometimes do. So it just takes care of all that and gives the kids the opportunity to get the statistics that they need in order to apply, let's say, to a college that has higher standards and would require a little more. So that's a major advantage of studying in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. All right, so all of that, we've just discussed this information up here at the top of the page. Now, as for the transcript, you can see that the transcript summarizes, normally I should say, summarizes a student's high school work. Now, the problem with that is that it's assumed that students in modern schools only do high school level work during their 4 years of high school. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, that's not necessarily the case because we have students doing high school level work when they're 10 years old. Our Latin reading course, for example, might not even be available in a modern university. We have students working on that who are 8 and 9 years old. That's high school, even college level work. So in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, it's a little different because students who work diligently through our program will go above and beyond the normal high school course list. But at the same time, we want to demonstrate our mastery in the ordinary high school courses, because this gives the admissions staff something to look at and understand what we've done as students. And many homeschooling families make an excuse for doing less. And so what they'll do is, if we look at the normal high school course list, we'll see math and science, history, foreign language, and English. And they'll say, well, we're not going to focus on math, we're going to focus on religion. And they substitute religion for math. Well, that's just laziness. Both have to be done. And if you're going to pursue a more excellent course of study, you've got to first demonstrate that you're able to handle the ordinary high school level courses, and then that you went above and beyond that and added additional courses. If it appears that you're just swapping out normal courses for different courses, that's not higher achievement. And it's not going to be respected. It's not reasonable to then take that homeschool plan of studies that you decided to pursue and then use it for what? To apply for admission to a modern university? That doesn't make any sense. What Catholic families need to do is first prove that they're capable of mastering normal modern school studies and then go above and beyond that into other studies, advanced studies, a more broad range of intellectual pursuits that include religion and philosophy and other studies, but not to replace the modern studies for different studies. That doesn't show a superior history of studies. So I recommend keeping the 4 high school years simple. I recommend using our high school program that we're developing right now. These things can be done now using our online courses, but we're actually developing a formal high school program that will make this crystal clear and simple for the students and parents to use. But I would recommend using our high school courses to complete these 4 years of study so that you can present that information easily on a transcript. And then, in addition to those studies, you can see down here, adding other courses that are studied and completed. They don't have to be completed because remember, this is ultimately a question of credits, which is ultimately a question of time spent studying a subject. So for example, if the Greek reading course that we have has 40 lessons, it might take a kid 2 years to complete that course. But we're only interested in a credit. So if the student puts in 120 hours of study in Greek reading, he can add Greek reading as a course with 1 credit and take his grade from that course at that time and place it here on the transcript. So some of this is complex to understand because we look at courses on the Academy website, and the courses in the Academy are real courses. They're not artificial school courses. So we don't necessarily say this Greek reading course equals 1 high school credit. That's definitely not true. And so as a high school parent, you'd be able to pull that information to put together the transcript. And of course, I'd help you to do that if you need help. But I would recommend keeping the high school courses simple like this. So when an admissions staff person looks at the transcript, it looks familiar and they can easily get a handle on the kids' studies. And then add, in addition to that, other studies that are pursued in the Academy, which enrich and add to the transcript. So that's how I would handle that. And you can see that that's how it's arranged here on this transcript. All right? And also because these studies may be done at any time, I don't think it's a good idea to put them in with the high school years. I would just keep them separate and sort of outside of that high school time frame, which is good. And then down the bottom, it's just what I recommend is you see down here we've got a parent's name. The parent will sign and date this, and you can see optional. If you'd like to have me help with this, you can have me also review it and sign it to help with that. But it needs to be signed to be finalized and completed. All right, so that's an overview of the transcript, and that's easy enough to understand. But now what do we do with this? How does this help us? As I said before, this is not something that we want to put together at the end, but it's something that we want to have prepared well in advance because it then becomes a source for a roadmap of our children's studies. If I were to ask you, what should a 6th grader be doing? What should a 7th grader be doing? Well, that's determined by what you want this transcript to look like at the end of 12th grade or when a child's 18 years old. When parents ask me those questions, what should my child be studying? He's 9 years old. What should he study? There's no way to answer that question, and that's why you're confused in the first place. You're confused because you haven't figured out yet what your goal is. And you're sitting there with a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old trying to make decisions, and you're just like pulling things out of thin air. And of course, modern homeschool programs capitalize on this and just sell boxes and boxes of useless junk that doesn't address the issue at all. Until you've got the goal established and made clear, until you've drafted what you'd like your child's high school transcript to look like, and then allow that transcript to now create a system of objectives and deadlines for what needs to be done when, you can't make any good decisions in homeschooling because you simply don't have the information that you need to make those decisions. Now, just to be very simple and get started with this, and again, I can help you with this if you schedule a consultation. I'll go through this in detail if you need my help. But I can explain what needs to be done, and I'm happy to do that for free. When you look at this and you say, all right, how about mathematics? What are we going to do with mathematics? And you can see I've just got this simply, I've got freshman mathematics, sophomore mathematics, and you could change that to give the actual name of the math classes studied. But it's standard. It's Algebra 1, freshman year, Modern Geometry, sophomore year, Algebra 2, junior year, and then some advanced math like trigonometry, senior year. Now, what's important about that is you see that the children need to be ready for algebra when they get to ninth grade, let's say age 14. They need to be ready for algebra. So they need to have arithmetic mastered. So really the K through 7, K through 6 years, the goal is to master modern arithmetic. To master it so that kids can devote themselves to algebra when they're 14 years old. So you see how it starts to create a timeline for when things need to be done. Most modern schools start algebra, they call it pre-algebra, in 7th or 8th grade. And that's just a normal timeline for when things need to be done to have a good high school transcript. So there's another thing to think about as well, which is how can you help the students get the highest possible grades during their high school years? And the answer is start these subjects earlier than high school. So if you can get, let's say, Modern Arithmetic 3 in the academy done when a child is 12 years old, you've now got 2 years for the child to get started with algebra before he starts his formal high school studies. That will make high school algebra much easier because he's already got a head start. It should make it easier for him to get the work done and get high grades. So the earlier you can get started, the better. And you can see how having high standards for the future transcript is what sets the timeline and places some pressure on different points of the homeschool years as we're working through things. And normally when parents ask me for help with that, course selection and setting goals and things like that, this is how I answer those questions. I just answer them based on a normal high school transcript. So I'll say, look, you need to focus on modern mathematics and try to get the kids through Modern Arithmetic 3 when they're 12 or 13, maybe 14, so they're ready and well prepared to start algebra in high school. The same is true of other subjects like English and history. They can start these subjects, Latin as well, they can start these subjects when they're 8 and 9 years old because the courses that are used, the content for our high school program is course content that's available to these kids to start much younger. So they can already be doing this work when they're 10 years old, and then when it's time to put the transcript together, it should be easy A's because they've been working on these subjects for almost their entire homeschool career. And during the high school years, it's time to just collect the rewards for those years of study, and the high school courses should be very easy. So establishing the transcript then becomes the goal, the destination, and that allows you to create the roadmap and make good moment-by-moment decisions all throughout the years of your high schooling work with your kids. So that's how it helps the parents to not just make these emotional decisions about what books to use or when to study this or that, or to allow homeschool conference speakers or catalogs to influence your decisions. There are objective ways to answer these questions. And if you're not answering them with these objectives in mind, you're just going to be all over the place. And from my experience, that's how most homeschool families do things. They're just all over the place. They've got 14-year-old kids that still can't even read well because they've bounced around with 7 different curricula, just, going through the catalogs and making whimsical decisions about things rather than focusing on what actually needs to get done and not worrying about the curriculum because it ultimately doesn't have that much effect. The changes to the curriculum are far more damaging to the kids' progress than just sticking with a simple text and being consistent. As long as the study materials are sufficient to bring the kid along to these ultimate goals, they're fine. All of this curriculum talk in the modern homeschool market is just marketing. It's just distraction from the actual work. In the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, all the books that we've made available to the kids, all the study materials are sufficient to complete all of these studies. And what's best for the kids is just to get into them and stay in them and make progress. Don't change things. Don't keep moving things around and starting over again. All of the courses we offer, all the books we offer are sufficient for any goals in academic work. I mean, you can have the highest goals and our program will go with you as high as you want to go. Or you can have humbler goals and our program supplies the study materials that are sufficient for that. But get out of this culture of catalog shopping and conference hopping and allowing all of these marketing people and sales people to constantly bombard you with catalogs and new offers and new programs and new research. You don't need that. The kids just need to study, and the study materials we offer are so simple. They're timeless, simple study materials that are sufficient to satisfy all of these needs. Don't keep changing things. Get out of that homeschool culture and make things simple. Having Transcript allows you to make objective decisions as you work through your years of homeschooling. All right? So that's how having the Transcript then allows you to work backwards to your present place and answer the question, what do we need to do today? What's a priority this month, this year? What do we need to work on now? You can actually answer those questions confidently if you have a transcript that you're aiming to provide for that child. So you're going to have to do the work of thinking through the transcript and what you'd like it to look like, drafting the transcript, showing it to the child and saying, this is our goal. Our goal is to allow you to have this transcript when you're 18 or 19 years old. This transcript will allow you to be admitted to a good college or school or the military or something else you'd like to do. This is a good transcript. So this is what we have to get done. We have to work to make this transcript true for you. That's the goal. And so now we're going to map it backwards or reverse engineer it to see where we are today and think about what we need to get done so that this can be your transcript when you're 18 years old. That's how it works. And it takes all of the confusion and uncertainty out of homeschooling, frees us from all of the marketing garbage that's in the homeschool community, and allows us to just dig our heels in, keep things simple, and focus on making progress, with the goal being to make this transcript true for your student. So that's how I approach education with my kids. I explain to them these things. I explain that this is a transcript that they will need, and what I show them is if they don't get the work done. So for example, if you don't get into trigonometry as a senior, then I'm going to give you a C, and a C is a 2.0, and that's going to bring your GPA down. And that's going to, that can affect what schools you can choose from if you think about going to college. And what I encourage my kids is to work hard and this takes wisdom and teaches them wisdom. I teach my kids, work hard so that you have as many doors open to you as possible when you're a young adult. If you don't work hard, what's going to happen is you'll be okay because there will still be doors open, but those doors will not be as attractive as other doors are, and you're going to have to humble yourself and accept lower things. So you're going to pay the price. If you choose to waste time during your high school years, if you choose to play video games and watch television and goof around and just play and dawdle, ultimately that's going to be reflected in your transcript, and that's going to limit what options you have available to you when you're 18 years old. That's in your control. The other thing I tell my kids when they get into their teenage years that motivates them is I say, look, this is the goal. This transcript is what you're working to achieve. It's in your control. You can just work and get this done. And when this is done, you're done. And so what I do is I sort of put the burden on the children and tell them, you want to talk about independence, you want to talk about going on to do this, and you want to do this when you turn 18 and all this kind of stuff. Look, all of that is in your control. If you're not going to work hard and you're going to waste time and you need your mother to babysit you all the time, you're only delaying the opportunities that you would have to pursue independent things in your life. So to be mature means to take responsibility for your work and get this work done. Because if you want to be independent, that's what it's going to mean to be independent. And so what you'll see is what's called the Telemachus principle, or what I call the Telemachus principle, where teenagers, especially boys, get to be 16, 17 years old, and they start to resist their parents' authority because their own independent spirit is developing. And yet it develops without reason and immaturely, and it doesn't respect the proper time for things. So you start to get these cocky, defiant teenage sons, and what that's a sign of is their emerging independence, which is good. However, what they need to learn is that desire for independence needs to be guided by reason. And so if they want to be independent, they've got to get their studies done. And so I'll challenge them. I'll challenge my sons. When my sons sort of flex like this as these little, young roosters strutting around the house, I say, if you're going to be a man, or if you want to argue that you're a man, then you have to get man work done and stop acting like a kid. And usually having the transcript to show them, having that in front of them and saying, if you actually were mature and independent, you would get this work done. As long as you delay in getting this work done, you're still a kid, just playing at home. If you want to become a man, you have to start doing man's work. And the first level of work for you to do to prove that you're a man is to get your high school work done, because otherwise you're just a kid. And so you can see how it provides parents also with a rhetorical position to argue from and motivate the kids, especially the older teenagers. As they start to get cocky, it humbles them and puts them in their place. If you really were strong, if you really were mature, you would have a high school diploma by now. If you really were as independent as you like to think you are, you would have your high school studies done so you can move on to adult things and not still be playing around with high school activities like a kid. That rhetoric is very motivating to teenage boys, and takes away a lot of the difficulties that many families struggle with. If you want to be independent, then you should graduate high school first, since that's something that kids do. Just that sort of humbling talk can help put kids in their place and help them to direct their energy on getting these studies done. And with the transcript, they have a clear path to that. Again, in other homeschool programs, I don't know that kids have that clear path that's in their control for them to work on and get finished. But in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, the earlier they realize that all of this is in their control, the earlier they can dig into it and direct all of their attention to just getting it done. You know, you hate homeschooling, you hate study, get it done. Then get it done and be done with it. That's fine. So again, there's a lot more to this than just getting ready academically or making good homeschool decisions. It's also, I think, an important part of the right source and way to motivate high school students, especially boys, when they're getting into their teenage years and they want to flex their muscles a little bit. They need to be shown what needs to be done, you know, really as sort of a rite of passage before you can start thinking of yourself as a man. You should finish your high school studies, and that's in your control. That message is effective, and that's another benefit of having this transcript established in advance. So I hope that's a helpful walk through this. Again, all of the content needed to pursue a transcript like this is available in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. It costs $25 a month for our basic student plan and would provide everything needed for what you see on this transcript and much more. If you need more individualized help for a student, you can upgrade that enrollment plan to what we call the premium student plan, which costs $100 per month for a student, which is still a fraction of private school tuition costs. But premium enrollment is available, and if you want me engaged with your kids and working with you in developing these transcripts and staying focused on the transcript goals and helping the kids to move along, that's what the premium enrollment plan is for. And another option you have is to schedule consultation meetings to go over this stuff and help prepare things for your family specifically. So all of the content is available. All of the resources you need are available. The concept itself is available and practicable in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. It's just a matter of you getting your act together, understanding how to manage a homeschool, and getting to it. So I hope that's helpful. Like I said, this is how I manage my own kids' studies at home. I have great relationships with my kids, and I think a lot of that is because of the clear path that they know they have to finish their studies, what our expectations are, where our rules come from, and things like that. I think that takes away the tendency to just have a battle of wills between parents and children, where children complain that the parents just treat them like slaves, and they're right about that, because the parents often don't have principles established or goals established, and the kids can sense that, and it's frustrating. I don't have that problem with my kids. I have good relationships. My kids understand what's expected of them. They understand how to get it done. And they know in their own conscience, they know if they're wasting time, they've got nobody to blame but themselves. And when they get to the end of their studies, if their transcript is not that impressive, again, they know that they've got no one to blame but themselves, and they've got to eat some humble pie, maybe apply to a college that's inferior to what they hoped that they would be able to do, and they get a taste of real life. So it helps with many different aspects of homeschooling, is good for family relationships, also allows motivated kids to go as high as they want in studies, because our program is unlimited, really. And at the same time, if there's a student who's slower or is interested in other things, getting the basics done to have a respectable high school transcript is possible without much trouble. So I hope that that's helpful. Hopefully this will stir up some new questions to get you thinking more deeply into these things. But my ultimate goal is to show you how to use the transcript to establish a goal, to establish standards, and then allow this goal and these standards to then shed light upon your day-to-day, year-by-year homeschool activities to make it orderly and peaceful, to give you confidence and assurance that what you're doing is good and is moving towards the desired goal. And I think that this transcript method will allow you to do that. So if any other questions pop up, just let me know, and either I'll respond to them directly or follow up with some more talks to get into this stuff in more detail. But I hope that's helpful. God bless your studies.